Based on the events of the week so far, now seems like a great time to talk about quarterbacks going into the Mizzou game. And the main reason for that is we have gotten some updated news on the quarterback situation. After the Penn State game, it was a little unclear. There were people who did not want TJ Finley to start going into Mizzou, but it was unclear as to who would start because when you looked at the game statistically, Robbie Ashford and TJ Finley were more or less even. There were some differences, but more or less stat-wise, they were pretty even. Well, we got an update this week that should provide a little more clarity on this situation because, like I said, they're even for the most part, but there were people who were, it seemed, more unhappy with the way TJ played. Looking at a tweet from Tom Green, he put out this tweet from a source that says Auburn quarterback TJ Finley will not be available for the SEC opener this weekend against Missouri due to a shoulder injury. We'd heard some rumors that he was wearing a sling to class and that kind of thing this week. It appears like that is true, and TJ Finley will not be available for Missouri. So that leaves us, based on that information, it leaves us with three options. We've got Robbie Ashford, who played a good amount versus Penn State. We've got Zach Calzada and Holden Garner. Now, the question is, who's actually going to play? We'll get into that in a minute because there's another tweet I want to look at. And this came from, I'm going to mess this up. This came from College Football Film Room, CFB Film Room. And I'll put this up on screen so you can see it. But they posted a stat about this past weekend versus Penn State. Auburn quarterbacks were pressured on 61.8% of their dropbacks versus Penn State. Almost 62% of the time they dropped back, they were getting pressure. And that is the fourth highest pressure rate allowed by an SEC team over the last 5 seasons. So in the past 5 seasons, this is the fourth highest pressure rate. So while we may not be happy with the quarterback play, with that stat, how can you really be that upset? I mean, that basically means our offensive line was just like Swiss cheese. People were just coming through like crazy. And you saw that. They were loading the box. They were rushing like crazy in the second half. It seemed like blitz after blitz. And they were getting pressure on our quarterbacks nonstop. Almost 2/3 of the plays, the quarterbacks were getting pressured, or 2/3 of the dropbacks, quarterbacks were getting pressured. That is an extremely high rate, and I don't know how we can expect our quarterbacks to be successful with that statistic in place. Now, that being said, going into Mizzou, let's go back to our quarterbacks. We've got Robbie Ashford, Zach Calzada, Holden Garner. I do not believe they're going to play Holden for this one. I don't see the benefit in playing Holden when we know we've got these glaring issues with our O-line, with pressure getting to the quarterbacks. I don't see the benefit in playing him right now. I think we've got to clean that up, and especially when we have 2 other guys who have experience. So I do believe it's going to be between Robbie Ashford and Zach Calzada based on what we know. So word is that the quarterback race is between those 2 guys. But let's go back to that statistic, the pressure on the quarterbacks. Based on what we know on those 2 guys, I feel like Robbie Ashford is probably the better pick right now because if they're not getting any kind of protection from their O-line, we need a guy that can scramble pretty well. I know Zach does have that skill set. He can scramble fairly well for the most part, but he also has that injury from last season that he's still nursing some. So what I expect to happen this week is I do expect that it'll be, they're going to be splitting the reps in practice. We were hearing a lot of Zach Calzada talk before the Penn State game. Ultimately, he did not show up in the game. He was there, but he never came on the field. I do think we will see him on the field this week, though. But QB1 is going to be Robbie Ashford. There are some issues with that. I think Robbie, from what we've heard, Robbie and Zach, both of them don't know the full playbook. So now the game plan is also going to have to change. They're going to have to design their game plan fully around these two quarterbacks who don't know the full playbook, or so I assume from what we've heard. But if we know that there's a good chance, depending on how good Mizzou's defensive line is, and I don't know much about them, we need to be prepared for a lot of pressure to get to these quarterbacks. And that is why I think Robbie Ashford will be the starter for this game. One other thing I did want to address is I don't know how much time you guys spend online on Twitter, Facebook, all that, but the players are starting to notice the toxic comments that are out there. And I know people have different opinions on what you should and should not say. But my advice to you is, say what you want about the coaches. I don't like even the talk about Harsin right now. That's just my personal opinion. The guy has not been fired, and everybody's already picking his replacement. I don't love that, but you do what you want to do. But the personal attacks that are happening against the players, that's got to stop. So if you're participating in that, just cut it out. There's no need for that. There's one thing to criticize gameplay. That's one thing. But the personal attacks that are out there, there's absolutely no need for it. So cut it out. And if you're hosting some of these Twitter spaces and stuff and you're in there just trashing players, keep in mind that there are players that sometimes jump into those and listen. There are players' parents that I've seen listening to what you're saying. And that just adds to a toxic culture. So if you're participating in that, just stop. There's no need for it. It's not going to make the program better. It's not going to make the fan base better. I don't think me saying this is actually going to stop you, but I'm still going to say what I think. So I know that got a little off topic, but I still felt like I needed to say it. Thank you guys for watching this one. I am interested to see who the starting quarterback will be, but I do think Robbie Ashford is going to get the job, and we'll get a better look at him, and we will finally get a look at Zach Calzada on the field as well. Thanks for watching, and War Eagle.